Okay, so welcome. So now in this video, what I'm going to be doing is installing Centos 7 and then OpenVPN into it in order so that I can connect through the IPFire router to be able to well, the ultimate aim is to try and install X2Go, but basically just going to get on with doing this next install. So to do that, basically just go back into the Proxmox. As you can see, that message is gone. One thing I found out is that there's another command that you have to use, and I've actually updated the article for the installing Proxmox. So now it should actually be more effective. And yes, I've added this extra line in here. And so if you just basically just run both of them, then that should be enough to actually stop the pop-up from coming up. But as I say, you only really do that because you just want to do some local testing. But if you're going to use it in a serious way and you got some like millionaires sort of sponsoring you, then you might as well just get that subscription so you can help Proxmox to sort of do more development on the because it is a very good system and it seems to work quite well as well. Alright, so next thing I'm going to do is to install the Centos 7. So to do that, go back into the local where we have drive, where we have all our sort of images. So I've already got the Centos 7 ISO here, so I can then basically create a virtual machine for it. So the ISO, we just choose the Centos 7 one. And just use the standard. And we still don't really need much space, so 20, probably don't even need this much space, but just in case something sort of happens to eat up a lot of the space on it. And the one core will do fine because Centos 7 is quite light. So better give it the 2 gigs again. So for the network, we want it to be on the internal one, so we make sure it's on VM bridge 1, and just leave everything as default. And we can do start after created because we don't have to add anything extra like a network interface to it. So now that's starting up, and so that's running. So we can do the same thing here where we can actually, and yeah, what we can do is connect. It's best to connect to it using the VNC again. Right, so that's the IPFire still running, and so basically I've got a few command line sort of commands that I used in here, and so then basically what we should do is again use just the VNC connection because the just because I don't trust that console. Because the one thing when you're doing an install, you don't want it to actually choose the wrong option. So if we put the add that in, and the thing is, this setting only lasts as long as the virtual machine is running. So if you ever stop the actual virtual machine, it will actually lose that setting and you have to put it in again. There is a way of doing it in the config file. Yeah, I was a bit too slow there because normally you stop it from doing the disk check, but it's pretty quick anyway, so it's not a problem. Yeah, this is weird because what I find is you have to like click twice for some reason. If you only click that once, it will tell you that you still get an exclamation mark here. For some reason, it just wants you to click twice on it. Right, so that's all set. So if you just begin, the easiest thing is just create a root password. And of course, just accept that weak password. You've got to click twice. And that's it. Okay, so that's finished. Okay. Okay, so in here, and one thing about Centos 7 is that it doesn't have ifconfig anymore. So you have to use IP. I think you said, sure. Yeah, so that's very strange. It's got ETH0. Usually it's some funny name. I'm not sure why it's but anyway. So we just need to get an IP address. Right, so we've got an IP address now, and yeah, and to make sure the internet comes up, there's a command you can run which is nmtui, and you can use that to like configure the networking. Yeah, for some reason there's two of them, not sure why. Let's just make sure that comes up on boot. Right, so now, just to make it easier, we can just connect in via SSH instead. Oh no, I forgot, I actually can't do that. Yeah, so basically this is now in that hidden network which is hidden inside the virtual machine. So that can be a bit of a challenge trying to connect to it, and that's the reason why we have this little container running. So what I'm going to do is basically just connect. Yeah, when you use this SSH command to essentially connect to connect to the container, and in order so that I can get access to the machines which are in the sort of hidden network. Let me just check what this IP is. That's 134. Alright, so that SSH is up. So do an SSH to it, and what we're doing here is just sending out the IPFire, a connection to the IPFire web interface. And the other thing, we need a connection to this this virtual machine as well. Okay, so that's it. So now we're in the container. And what that does, it means that now the container itself, if we go back to it, you actually see it's listening on the 444 and 2222, and so these are our connections into the machines which are in that sort of hidden network. So now to connect to that, we can now SSH into them. Right, but before we do that, that also means that we can now connect to the IPFire. So this is just a login that we set in the installer. So there we have it. So we're connected. Well, we're magically connected to the IPFire, even though it's behind the firewall. And the way we did that was basically by using this, basically creating like a reverse connection from one of the machines which is inside that hidden network, and then sending the ports from the network out to that container, and then we connect to the container, and then we can basically now configure the IPFire firewall. So the main thing we want to do now is just make sure that this gets a fixed IP address. Right, so we've made sure that this is going to always get that 50 address, and the reason why is because we want to forward some ports to it, and we don't want that address to change. And so what we need now is yeah, so the next thing we want to do is to install the OpenVPN. So if we connect to that machine, so we're into it. So this is the iPhone thing. Yeah, so you can see it's a 2050, so we're actually SSHing into that internal network machine. So now that we're into it, you can even connect to it. If there was any other virtual machines in the that hidden network, we can now SSH into them from here. And you can see the IPFire is already working as a router, like as a default install, so there's nothing actually to configure. There's nothing to configure to make it into like a router. Once you install it, it automatically is a router, which is convenient, because I know there's some some of these firewall OSs which actually won't do that for you. Right, so now we're just installing the VPN. Right, and so this is the IP of the actual the IPFire firewall. So if you're going to basically, if the IPFire was connected straight to the internet, this would be the internet address or host name of the external, the red interface of the IPFire. And well, UDP works okay, but I found there's occasionally sometimes it doesn't, but we'll try UDP for now. And of course, you want to use something which is external. Because this is just a test setup, so the DNS isn't going to work for external addresses. Okay, so I'm just going to try it again. Because it looks as if I forgot to do the yum update, and that messes up the repository. Right, okay, so I messed things up a bit there because I didn't do a yum update before I ran the script. So basically that's it, very important to make sure that you do a yum update first. and then you run that that command to install the OpenVPN. Okay, so let's try again. Right, so now that what should have happened, there should be like a client script, sorry, a client config file that we can actually use to connect. And so basically the next thing we have to do is obviously have some way of getting that file out. And we can just check that it's okay by just catting it. Yeah, so that looks okay. Alright, so that's basically the end of sort of installing the Centos 7 into Proxmox and setting up OpenVPN on it. And just want to check that it's actually running. Yes, it looks like that's okay. And so the next thing we have to check is to make sure that it can actually be connected to from outside. So if we try to, oh, actually I just realized it's UDP, so we can't actually use a telnet on it. But there is actually a way to still test it. So if we check for that port with Nmap UDP, we just specify the port just to save time. So if we do a UDP scan of 1194, then basically it says that it's open or filtered. So what it really means is it's not actually sure. So now if we go into the IPFire, and then we set up a forward. Right, so what we do is so we go to the firewall rules. So the source network is the red, and then we want network address translation. And so the destination address is that 51. Right, and so the protocol's it's UDP, and then it's 1194. No, sorry, source port is anything. So destination and NAT, that's 1194. Right, and so that should be enough to do it. So import. So if we add that, and then if we apply the changes, and we can check that it's running on here. Right, so we can see 1194 is running. So we've applied that. So now if we go back to the container and we do a Nmap scan again, alright, doesn't seem to have made any difference. Okay. Right, okay, so okay, so basically that's the end of this particular video. So that's how you configure IPFire and OpenVPN on CentOS using the script, and just make sure you do things in the right order. And then also adding the rule for the VPN to the IPFire, although I didn't get a chance to actually test if it's working. Although there is actually, yeah, I think it's probably worth just seeing if we can do that. So let me just give that a try. Okay. Right, so what I'm going to do, since I can contact this container, I'm just going to send the file to it. Right, so we've got that here now. And so what we have to do should be run the command and then just use the configuration file so we see what happens. Yeah, that's the only problem with it. I'm not sure if tap devices work in a container. Yeah, so yeah, probably. But at least it shows one thing. We can actually see initial packet. Yeah, so it looks as if it's working. And just to make sure that isn't because the IPFire has got some sort of bug, let's see. Let's disable it. Yeah, so that's disabled. So let's see if it works again. Alright, see, so it's not even connecting, so it's not even getting to the tap device part because it can't initiate the connection. So now if we enable it again, alright, so there you go. So even though the actual connection doesn't work, one thing we know for sure is that it is actually able to connect to the actual server behind the IPFire firewall. So basically this part of that video is finished now, and so in the next video I'll go on to the final part of actually trying to get X2Go to actually work when you're trying to connect to the server, to an X2Go server, which I'm going to be setting up in that Centos 7 virtual machine. Okay, see you.